Shabbat Shalom. Our scripture reading for today is Psalms chapter 84, verses 1 through 4. How amiable are your tabernacles, O Yahweh of hosts! My soul longeth, yea, even fainted for the courts of Yahweh. My heart and my flesh cried out for the living Elohim. Yea, the sparrow has found an house, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young. Even your altars, O Yahweh of hosts, my King and my Elohim. Blessed are they that dwell in your house. They will be still praising you.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Our selection today, Down in My Soul.
Down in my soul cries
Holy.
Oh, down
In my soul cries holy. Down in my soul.
In my sanctified soul.
In my sanctified soul. Down in my soul
cries holy. Down in my soul cries
holy.
Oh, down
In my soul cries holy. Down in my soul. In my sanctified soul.
in my sanctified soul
Cries
holy. Just like Yahshua, we gotta be
holy.
Oh,
Just like Yeshua, we gotta be holy. Just like Yeshua, in our sanctified soul.
In our sanctified soul, we gotta be holy. Just like Yahshua, we gotta be
Holy.
Oh,
Just like Yeshua, we gotta be holy. Just like Yeshua, in our sanctified soul.
In our sanctified soul,
We gotta
be holy. We gotta be
holy.
Down in my soul, we gotta be
Holy.
oh, down.
Soul cries holy. Down in my soul. In my sanctified soul.
In my sanctified soul, cries holy. Down in my soul, cries
Holy.
oh, down.
Soul cries holy. Down in my soul. Sanctified soul.
In my sanctified soul, in my sanctified soul, in my sanctified soul.
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. What the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you're sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to our Shabbat service that we are having to do remotely in different locations because of the weather. I do pray that everybody is safe during this time, and we actually have light weather compared to the things that are going on all around this country, which is some of the things that we're going to get into today. The title of today's sermon is Revelation of the Hidden, Just Judgment in Action. And I want to start because there's the parallels of how things are dealt with within the scripture. We kind of have to go into something. I want to start in Proverbs 11 and verse 7. It says, when a wicked man dies, his expectation shall perish, and the hope of the unjust men perish. The righteous is put out of trouble, and the wicked is in his stead. An hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there is shouting. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. He that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit conceals the matter. Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Now,
one of the things that we have to deal with is the balance between talebearer, and it's interesting that the word that's behind that is revealeth. When we look in the dictionary for revelation, revelation is defined in the dictionary as a surprising and previously unknown fact, especially one that is made known in a dramatic way. We have an entire book called Revelation, and most of the times people do not want to read out of that book because of the things that are being dealt with in that book. So then we must deal with the balancing part of bringing things to light so that just judgment can take place. When we even examine some of the things that Israel was sent, when the prophets were sent to Israel, Yahweh said, go and talk to his people. He is telling them, he is revealing their secrets. He says, you've done this, you've done that, you've done that. To people, this seems foul. And Yahweh already told the prophet, look, you're going to tell them this stuff, but they're not going to listen to you. Okay? The purpose was not for them to listen to you. The purpose was for just judgment to be correct. And for that to be correct, they have to have been told or pronounced what they have done and what the decision is based on that. So to get that full scope of that, let's begin in Leviticus chapter 19, and we're going to read verses 13 through 18.
Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 13. You shall not defraud your neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with you all night until the morning. You shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. You shall not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor.
That means it should be equal judgment all the way going across the board. Go ahead.
You shall not go up and down as a talebearer among your people, neither shall you stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in any wise rebuke your neighbor and not suffer sin upon him.
Now, there's a fine line right here. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in any wise rebuke your neighbor. That means you're going to have to say something concerning whatever issue occurred. And it's interesting that right before that, it says you shall not hate your brother. Because let me tell you something. A lot of times we think that we're being peaceful or we're being neutral, so we won't say anything about a topic. But what's happening is you're getting little bitty bits of disgust is growing in your heart while you're saying, well, I don't want to say anything about it, but it's growing. And now this issue has stretched out, and now there are other things that you won't partake in because you didn't go forward and say, you know what, I need to rebuke my neighbor for this thing because it's inside of me and it's causing me to react different or not even take advantage of the things that are around me because this thing is slowly increasing in me. Go ahead.
Verse 18, you shall not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children.
Okay, right there. Holding it is how you get to the point of avenging and bearing a grudge. But sometimes we're trying to avoid the spot where we come forward, have a face-to-face conversation. And in attempting to avoid that face-to-face conversation, now these little bitty, remember that it is written in the scripture, any root of bitterness. All right. So that little bitty part now starts to grow and it's turning into something else. Go ahead.
But you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh.
Now, loving your neighbor as yourself means that you need to inconvenience yourself, go sit your brother or your sister down and have that conversation with them face to face. You need to do that. Otherwise, you have a possibility that all of this may be growing inside of you. All the while, you believe that you're being peaceful or being neutral, but you are actually suffering some silent effects from not rebuking your brother. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 13.
Deuteronomy chapter 13 and verse 6. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or your friend, which is as your own soul, entice you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, you nor your fathers.
Now, this says entice you secretly. So this is a private conversation between you and this individual. Now, what we just read before says you shall not go up and down as a talebearer. Yet here is the law. If they entice you secretly, this is a private conversation between you and that individual. Let's see what Yahweh says. Go ahead.
Namely, of the gods of the people which are round about you, near unto you, or far off from you, from the one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. You shall not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him. Neither shall your eye pity him, neither shall you spare, neither shall you conceal him.
Oh, now see that there is the whole part. You shall not consent unto him. Now we'll do that part. All right. Nor hearken unto him. We'll do that part. Here's the part where we leave off. Neither shall your eye pity him. Neither shall you spare, neither shall you conceal. See, we have so many people in prison right now because they said, I ain't gonna be no snitch. So we have this thing. Yahweh said, you shall not conceal him. But we believe that at this point that we're doing something good. Now it's funny where we put the levels of that. Because we will want to take a neutral stance when it's an individual situation. But when that situation grows large or harms us personally, we no longer want the issue concealed. That's very interesting. Go ahead.
Verse 9. But you shall surely kill him. Your hand shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people.
This is another reason why we don't want to move forward, because the hands of the witnesses have to be first. And it's very difficult to try to proclaim neutrality when you were the first one to actually throw the rock. Okay. So we don't want that either. So we'd rather pause and let somebody else deal with that. Go ahead.
And you shall stone him with stones, that he die, because he has sought to thrust you away from Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. And all Israel shall hear and fear, and shall do no more any such wickedness as this is among you.
Now, one of the reasons why the thing has to be brought out is because of verse 11. And all Israel shall hear and fear, and shall do no more any such wickedness as this is among you. Now, if they don't hear it, if they don't know of the punishment, if they don't know of the deed, then it has a tendency to keep going. So the very thing that we think we are helping in concealing, what you're doing is concealing that so they can do that to more people. And have we considered that in our concealing? See, we have to know which things to conceal and which things should be brought out for just judgment. Because you may be concealing something, and now that individual has done that to 5 other people. But had you come forward, it would have only been you. Now, ask yourself a question. Do the blood of those other 4 individuals, is that now on your hand? Interesting question. I want to read something. Let's go to Genesis 39, but I want to read a few things before we go there. I'm going to read 2 parts while you go there. Proverbs 25:2 says, it is the glory of Elohim to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. Proverbs 30:23 says, for an odious woman, when she is married, and an handmaid that is heir to her mistress. What is it talking about an odious woman when she is married? It's talking about something unpleasant. All right. So an odious woman is a hateful woman. Well, if she's married, then she has the protection of her husband. Let's go to Genesis chapter 39, and I want to start that at verse 1.
Elder, you weren't doing Deuteronomy 17?
I'm sorry, brother. I skipped that. Let's go to that first. Thank you, brother. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17. And let's do 1 through 7. And then we'll do Genesis 39. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. You shall not sacrifice unto Yahweh your Elohim any bullock or sheep wherein is blemish, or any ill-favoredness, for that is an abomination unto Yahweh your Elohim. If there be found among you within any of your gates which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, man or woman that has wrought wickedness in the sight of Yahweh your Elohim in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded,
Uh-huh.
and it be told you, and you have heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shall you bring forth that man or that woman, which has committed that wicked thing, onto your gates, even that man or that woman, and shall stone them with stones till they die.
Now, understand now what it says. Now, there's something that is taking place, and it was told you. You heard it, and then you inquired diligently. And behold, it be true, then you shall bring forth that man or that woman. Once again, there is no concealing in that. See, there's a part where we get caught up in between the talebearer and the things that have to be dealt with for just judgment. And in not dealing with those things correctly, we are allowing more wrong to happen. And the whole purpose here is that you may cut off the evil from Israel. By concealing it, you allow it to keep going. We are the kind of people who do this. An entire tribe of Israel almost got cut off, all because they wanted to conceal or not give up the individuals who had done an unjust deed. The tribe of Benjamin was almost lost. And not once was it said that they had did the deed. All they had to do was give up the men. But instead, they almost got the entire tribe wiped out, trying to conceal something of somebody else's deed. And half the time we are encouraged to do that because we have some untoward deeds of our own that we don't want anybody to mention. So what we'll do is we'll protect somebody else's untoward deed, hoping that they will do the same for us. And in turn, we have caused an issue with our Elohim. Go ahead.
At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death. But at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. The hands of the witnesses shall be first upon him to put him to death. And afterward the hands of all the people. So you shall put the evil away from among you.
Right. You cannot keep silent and put the evil away from among you. Now, we're going to watch as this starts to grow upon what we've had to deal with within the daughter of Babylon. Now, when it comes down to those things, we want those things uncovered. We don't want those things concealed. We want those things to be dealt with in righteous judgment. But then individually, we won't do it. But we want it to be done as a nation. Now, how does Yahweh look at us when we ask for something like that? He says, okay, so you want me to deal with worldwide just judgment, but you can't deal with just judgment down the street. But you want me to judge the whole world justly. Can we even ask him for that? Let's go to Genesis chapter 39. Genesis 39, and let's start that at verse 1.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, they bought him off the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And Yahweh was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that Yahweh was with him, and that Yahweh made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put in his hands. And it came to pass, from the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that Yahweh blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of Yahweh was upon all that he had in the house and in the field.
All right, pause right there for a second, my brother. Here's one of the things that is hard for the world to get, and it's hard for us to get. Here it is. This man is in a situation that he rather had not been in, but his presence brings forth a blessing to even the people that are richer than him. His presence brings forth that. This nation has a favor of Yahweh just because of our presence. I don't care whether or not we're in a good situation or a bad situation. Our presence brings forth that. Do you understand that your presence is that powerful? And if you did, why are you allowing it to be in an untoward situation? There are things that we cannot change. Our presence is there. We end up in a place forcefully. But then there are places where we choose to go. And we have brought the favor of Yahweh to an unfavorable location. Go ahead.
Verse 6. And he left all he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came
now, this also says that he was, when it says that he knew not aught he had, that means the man was so trustworthy he didn't count his stuff. Go ahead.
And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master knows not what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is none greater in the house than I, neither has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against Elohim? And it came to pass that she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her or to be with her.
Now, her hatefulness, her odiousness is growing day by day as he continues to deny her, to lie with her. She is growing hatefully. She's not in a situation of, hey, I'm attracted to this guy and this is what it is. No, she's getting angry that he is not hearkening unto her requests to be with her. Go ahead.
It also shows the strength of Joseph, because he made his nose stronger and stronger with every attempt. Other people would have got weaker and weaker.
Right. That's normally how that works with us. And herein lies a very delicate situation, because if he goes and talks to this man, what does he look like? I've been in situations like this before, and then the person turn on you when you say, "Hey, man, your wife is coming at me in a strange way." Best he can do is try to orchestrate a situation where he's not in a alone situation, but there's no good way for him to deal with this. Go ahead.
And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the man of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out.
And this is why being in a situation where you are alone and there's not the right structure around, she doesn't get to do this if other people are there. She only gets to do this at this most opportune time. And we have a tendency to allow situations where something could happen. Sometimes the safest thing is to make sure that there is structure so that this is not present. If you have enough individuals, this does not get tried. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he has brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us.
Now, you see how it is her desire to have him, but now that she's become at her top level of odious, now she hateful as all get out now. Now she has made the issue theirs. It's no longer hers. She says, he has brought an Hebrew unto us to mock us. Us wasn't in there trying to lay with the man. That wasn't us. That was her. But now, and this is what causes us to grab hold of some other issue that has nothing to do with us. Now it's us. He has brought this Hebrew in to mock us. Now, he has been placed in charge over them. So she knew that there was a possibility that they have some disdain, that this foreigner, if you will, has power over them. Go ahead.
You know, you also just answered a question that I was thinking about, him not telling anyone else what was going on. And if he's the only foreigner and he's already looked disdain upon, and he has no one he can confide in with what's going on.
Right. He could open his mouth and it turned out. I'm talking about, I had this happen with a brother who lived with me. You open your mouth to that and you don't know how that's going to turn out. You have to examine how this situation, how this individual is going to react. Go ahead.
He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out.
Mm-hmm.
She laid up his garment by her until his master came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant, which you have brought unto us, came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass,
now you see, the mocking was me. Now, see, it was to mock us. Mm-hmm. When she was talking to the other men, because she needed to go ahead and get some backing for the story before she gave it unto her husband. Now, when she's talking to her husband, it is to mock me. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did your servant to me, that his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison.
All right, so this odious woman is now protected and using the strength of her husband to throw an innocent man in jail. Go ahead.
But Yahweh was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
And that's what happens when you have the blessing of Yahweh. You can still be in a bad situation and you are still the most favored of everybody in the bad position. That's something, that favor, even though you're put in an unfavorable position and spot, the favor does not go away. There was not too long ago, a man named Isaiah Andrews, who spent 46 years in prison, and it was finally declared wrongfully. He was brought into the courtroom in a wheelchair. If he had been given the death penalty, he would already have been dead by the time of his exoneration, and it would never have been spoken of. We must consider what Yahweh is doing. The people who have spent most of their time being judged by their oppressors will be resurrected as 144,000 judges of men. Yahweh will raise up the wrongfully accused and cause them to judge the earth. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14. See, nobody ever really thinks about that when they say that, these people are going to be raised up as judges. You have to understand, if you ever go, because everything is glamorized. So you can go and look at court TV. It is very easy to see. It's supposed to be that you're judged by your peers, yet you can be in an all black community. Where did those white people on that jury come from? Because they don't live in your neighborhood. And then there's a Gentile judge as well. So we know how the judge and the jury is being set up. You have to see what Yahweh is doing. So then when he raised up all of these people who have seen unjust judgment their entire lives, what do you think? How clear is their judgment going to be when they get to judge the earth, understanding how unjustly they have been judged? No one considers that. Isaiah chapter 14, and let's start that at verse 1.
For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And
all right, so the children of Israel are supposed to possess somebody for servants. Now, those people that they possess for servants should be of the people who they were servants to. And we have to look out in the earth and see, how is that going to take place if indeed the people who are in the land are the true children of Israel? Go ahead.
And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors.
Now, we understand we can already rule out Egypt because all of this was given after Egypt, okay? So you can't say that the people on the land are going to have the Egyptians as slaves, because none of that went to Yahweh. Already dealt with Egypt, okay? That was a situation where he dealt with the children of Israel, released the children of Israel. Then here comes the law concerning how Israel must conduct themselves in that land. So when we start dealing with they shall have captives of whose captives they were, this has to be after Egypt. And if we're dealing with the people in the land, we have to ask, who were you ever in captives with? Who held you in captivity after the period of the Egyptian captivity? Then those are the people that they're supposed to have as captives. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh shall give you rest from your sorrow, and from your fear, and from the hard bondage wherein you was made to serve. That you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Yahweh has broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted and none hinders. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you are laid down, no fellers come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto you, are you also become weak as we? Are you become like unto us? Your pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of your vials. The worm is spread under you, and the worms cover you. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I'll exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see you shall narrowly look upon you and consider you, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners?
Mhm.
All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. But you're cast out of your grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass
Now,
trodden under feet.
so when you look at that, it looks like peace on earth, everyone sitting in his own house. That has to, Babylon has to be destroyed before that can happen. That's very interesting. And it's also connected to the redemption of the children of Israel. All right, keep going.
You shall not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land and slain your people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children for the lawlessness of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I'll rise up against them, says Yahweh of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, says Yahweh. I'll also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I'll sweep it with the besom of destruction, says Yahweh of hosts.
I will sweep it with the besom of destruction. This is part of Babylon's judgment. If you've been paying attention to any of what's happening here, you can't turn on the news without hearing about the California fires. Now, in this country, we are displaced because of ice. So this is one of the things in this country, we have a problem of fire and ice at the same time. So it's fire on one side and it's iced up on the other side. Okay. The recent California fires were referred to by one of the firemen as a fire cane, if you will. Says it is a hurricane. It has hurricane force winds, but with fire, and that is wild. Many people have watched their homes burn on television, and it is tumultuous. That people have have to be forced out of their homes because of that. I went through a house fire when I was young, so I know what that is like, but not on that kind of devastation where it was everybody. It was just my house. I watched my mom pass out in the front yard, realizing that her home was gone. So that there is a feeling of loss that comes over you, even if the insurance company does actually pay. There are things that cannot be replaced. But even in that situation, we have to understand that Yahweh is in control. The weird part about this fire and that I ended up having to deal with, every Sunday we would go over, my grandma's house like most families did for Sunday dinner. And, I had, this was the only time I could play my stereo as loud as I wanted when everybody was gone. So I had already skipped last Sunday and I tried to skip this Sunday and my mom said, no, you're not, you going. So I went that Sunday. When we got back, the entire floor of my room was downstairs. So that whole area was completely gone and I was forced not to be there. So of course, within that little bit of destruction, we had to move out of that neighborhood into a neighboring city that I had never heard of at the time. And the strange part about it is the wife of my youth, who I had not met yet, was also going through a house fire. And her and her family moved in my neighborhood as I moved out of my neighborhood. Apparently, Yahweh said not yet. Okay. But he's still in control, even in some situations. So, brothers, I want you to read some of this concerning what's happening in those California fires, if you will.
Since the flames erupted in and around Los Angeles, scores of residents have returned to their still smoldering neighborhoods, even as the threat of new fires persisted and the nation's second largest city remained unsettled. For some, it was a first look at the staggering reality of what was lost as the region of 13 million people grapples with the gargantuan challenge of overcoming the disaster and rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Calmer winds enabled firefighters to start gaining some control of the biggest blazes in metropolitan LA on Friday before gusty weather returns over the weekend to an area that hasn't seen rain in more than 8 months.
All right. So the whole part of this global warming now, the Earth has been under Gentile rule. They've had their time of reign, and under this Gentile rule, this is where our global warming has taken place. It is interesting how fault is attributed, but when it comes down to a grand scale, nobody wants to accept the blame. No, you have been in control of the earth, and the earth is unruly because of what you have done to it to make as much money as you possibly could. That now there are serious issues going on. So this global warming is why the hurricanes are so strong. It is why you have situations where it hasn't rained for 8 months in that area. The winds are so strong. It is so dry. So you have a treatment upon the earth that is eventually coming to foot here. But what's interesting about the hurricanes is that stuff is felt here. It's like the hurricanes are designed to deal with this place because this is where they end up. Okay. And it's interesting when you go back and look that they follow the path of the slave ships. So they begin in Africa, and then all the damage that the hurricanes do follow where those slave ships landed. Very interesting. Go ahead.
But by Friday evening, new evacuations were issued in an area that includes the Getty Museum as the eastern side of the Palisades fire spread, nearing Interstate 405. Since the fires first began popping up around a densely populated 25-mile, 40-kilometer expanse north of downtown LA, they have burnt more than 12,000 structures, a term that includes homes, apartment buildings, businesses, outbuildings, and vehicles. No cause has been identified yet for the largest fires. Allegations of leadership failures and political blame have begun, and so have investigations. Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday ordered state officials to determine why a 117 million gallon, 440 million liter reservoir was out of service and some hydrants ran dry, calling it deeply troubling. Meanwhile, Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley said city leadership failed her department by not providing enough money for firefighting. She also criticized the lack of water. Officials on Friday set up a center where people could report those missing. Tens of thousands of people remain under evacuation orders, and the fires have consumed about 56 square miles, 145 square kilometers.
Now, it's interesting because, first of all, these are very affluent homes that have been completely burned to the ground. And now there's all of this about blame for this or blame for that. But keep reading.
The disaster took homes from everyone, from waiters to movie stars. The government has not yet released figures on the cost of the damage, but private firms have estimated it will climb into the tens of billions.
Now, I have watched celebrity after celebrity mention how devastating this tragedy is and vowing that they will rebuild. They are, of course, counting on insurance payments, and the insurance companies are shaking in their boots at such payments. We're talking one house is multi-million dollars, possibly. Now, There were reports that some fires may have been started by an arsonist, and celebrity after celebrity have ushered very harsh words concerning any individual that may be responsible for remotely starting any of those fires. They know the conditions have an issue, but then there are other fires. So we're not just talking about one fire here, okay? So but the very harsh words about anybody responsible for that. Now, the most that they know of right now has been 11 lives lost. So, with that being the backdrop, brother, I want you to start reading about the burning of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
You know, Elder, even on this thing with the insurance, it said that a couple of those insurance company have pulled out months ago.
Right, right. It's very interesting, but it's a travesty what is happening to them, and the insurance companies pull right out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and why I want to make the comparison because there's a reason Tulsa, Oklahoma was the richest of Black people.
Right.
Okay, so it is interesting. I can't turn on the news without hearing about the fires in LA because it was a very affluent area. Tulsa, Oklahoma was affluent. Okay. They were very rich Black people. So much, in fact, that it angered all the Gentiles around them. And this is why it burned. So I want to highlight how upset the people were. And they're showing all the celebrities about if somebody started some of those small fires. One of the stars, I think it was Henry Winkler, that said you should be beaten unrecognizable if you had anything to do with this. All right, go ahead and start reading about the burning of Black Wall Street.
The burning of Black Wall Street. A century later, the issue is still not settled on the massacre of the wealthy Black Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 100 years ago, Black families in Tulsa were denied financial restitution from insurance companies after the massacre that occurred between May 31st and June 1st, 1921.
Okay, pause for a second. June 1st. It was June 2024 when they kicked out another filing that the people had made regarding the burning of Tulsa. So we're dealing with, there are two people still living. Like these people are like 100 and something years old. It's like purposely they're trying to make sure that every person in that has died off before they will ever even acknowledge it. But it's interesting that we're talking about June, and it was just June 2024 that they kicked the suit out of court again. And they've had multiple suits, and Tulsa keeps kicking it out. And this was their Supreme Court in that state. Go ahead.
Ironically, some of the same insurers that denied those claims are still economically thriving today from that decision.
Oh, now look at here. Look at here. So they made a lot of money by not spending any because they didn't pay any of those claims. Now, it's very interesting when you look at the graphics and look at the scope on each one. They look the same. Go ahead.
A group of men walking in the street. In this photo provided by the Department of Special Collections, McFarland Library, the University of Tulsa, a group of Black men are marched past the corner of 2nd and Main Streets in Tulsa, Oklahoma, under armed guard during the Tulsa Race Massacre on June 1st, 1921. Department of Special Collections, McFarland Library, the University of Tulsa, via AP file. We know what was taken, said Demario Solomon Simmons, the lead attorney for the last living survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. We also know some of the insurance companies that are still active today. Tulsa Race Massacre survivors delivered emotional pleas to Congress at hearing. Solomon Simmons announced during the hearing before Congress that he wants to open a dialogue with the CNA, IAG companies the Insurance Company of Pennsylvania, Westchester Fire Insurance Company, the Hartford, Great American Insurance Company, Insurance Company of North America, North River Insurance Company, California Insurance Company, Phoenix Insurance Company.
Mm-hmm.
NAACP President Derek Johnson contends this is an example of how corporate America participates in structural racism.
Now, Tulsa, they won't even discuss it, yet I can't turn on the television without hearing about the affluent celebrities who have lost their homes, yet this will not even be heard in public. Go ahead.
It is not only the government of policies, it is not only the behaviors of individuals, it is the ongoing collusion of corporate America who profited off of the backs of African Americans. Johnson tells the Griot, it wasn't just a function of a region of the country in the South or local governments or the federal government, it was the ongoing participation of all society. In the midst of a new push for racial equity, 100 years after the displacement of 10,000 people and destruction of 35 blocks of the affluent Black enclave.
Now, 35 blocks of affluent Black structures everywhere. Now you look at what's happening here. Okay, keep reading.
The Greenwood District was a thriving Black hub of commerce, home to multiple millionaires.
Multiple millionaires in 1921? Hold on. I need for you to grasp that. Do you understand what $1 million was in 1921?
What it's worth now?
Right. Okay. And an angry white mob burned Tulsa to the ground. Wasn't no Santa Ana winds. Okay. Wasn't no thing where it hadn't rained for 8 months. Wasn't no one arsonist. Okay. Go ahead.
And about 300 Black-owned businesses. It is colloquially known as Black Wall Street. The mob laid waste to about 35 blocks within 16 hours.
Wait a minute. In 16 hours, they took out 35 blocks. The fires that are happening now, because they're happening with the force of nature, they keep attempting to put them out and they keep popping back up. Even fires that they know they can't win, they are trying to put it out because otherwise it keeps going and burns other structures. Go ahead.
Arresting thousands of Black residents.
So